Hi guys, it's SkintBoot here, and today what I'm going to be bringing you guys is a No Man's Sky video. And in today's video, what I'm going to be looking into is something a little bit different. In fact, today's video is actually a speculation video, and you know, I haven't done a full-blown speculation video and a ramble and just a big fucking sum up of a load of really crazy stuff in a good few months now. But today what I want to focus on is where No Man's Sky can logically go next, and according to the community, what it needs to be a near perfect game. So this goes without saying, but remember, a lot of what is said in this video is down to simple opinion. One man's go-to feature may be another man's stay the fuck away feature, so there isn't anything that is truly objective. But anyways, with all of that said and done, please do sit back and relax. Let's get started. Okay, so let's start with a little bit of context to better understand how Hello Games generally update No Man's Sky. So as we know, No Man's Sky did launch with a fair bit of missing content, a lot of which was very famous, like multiplayer. Now, we're not here to debate why this happened or if this was a matter of promise versus expectation. All I'm saying is that what we thought we would receive and what we actually did receive was a completely different product. Now, a lot of this was simply down to overhyping and wasn't necessarily Hello Games' direct fault, but then again, a lot was their fault, especially good old Sean and his overly excited manner. What I'm trying to explain here is that No Man's Sky is still a game that's adding new content, whether it be advertised content or brand new content, and this directly plays into the game's launch. The philosophy behind updating No Man's Sky is a mystery to most people. On one hand, it can be seen as a way of Hello Games showing their support and determination for making No Man's Sky a flawless game, you know, a pure passion project. But on the other hand, some may argue it's to save their own asses and prevent any kind of legal troubles for false advertising, shit like that. A good portion of updates have been focusing on bringing back old content shown in trailers that never made it into the final game. Take something like Crash Freighters, for example, which was a fairly minor thing which we saw in trailers, but people still brought it up on one of those big Reddit mega threads as features which we never saw. And because of this, a general direction Hello Games seemed to follow was ensuring content updates added missing features, but then add even more onto that. And 2 years down the line, No Man's Sky has had 5 major content updates plus smaller updates that have drastically changed the state of the game and makes it unrecognizable from the absolute mess it was at launch. So let's actually begin, and where is the best place to start? The classic multiplayer debate. Now, when discussing No Man's Sky and the future, and in particular how it can be even better, a good portion of the community will always say multiplayer. We of course have multiplayer and a promise of it being improved over time, but some people want even more. And what these people argue for are things like huge space battles and an online economy. Admittedly, this isn't the majority of people that talk about multiplayer, and most people don't want No Man's Sky to be an MMO, but just from looking at my comments dropped on multiplayer videos and things like that, there are definitely people that want No Man's Sky to almost be a open world online space MMO kind of experience. Now, I'm all for making multiplayer a bigger part of the game. In fact, the fundamentals like getting rid of orbs and having full player models and having, you know, every single player visible at the same time is something which I think No Man's Sky does definitely need. But perhaps having something like an alliance system and full out wars and maybe even guild systems isn't necessarily, in my opinion, what No Man's Sky needs. When the game begins to turn into this weird kind of Planet Side 2 hybrid where the main focus is on combat and having big fucking battles in space, it sort of loses what makes No Man's Sky special. Because remember, back in the day, Sean always said that multiplayer would be a little bonus. The feature would almost act like an Easter egg because it was so goddamn uncommon. The main feeling of the game was capturing isolation. This was a common motif in No Man's Sky that does still sort of exist to this day. It was your journey, your discoveries, your own emotions that aren't shared shared elsewhere. It's a very individual experience, and that's what sets No Man's Sky apart from other space games like, say, Elite Dangerous, that has the multiplayer aspect. No Man's Sky still to this day drives to enforce this immense sense of scale, where you're just one grain of sand on a mile-long beach. And if you think about the feature which has enforced this the most, is likely third person. This kind of seems like a small thing, but as soon as you get another perspective of just how small your character is when you're on this completely vast and alien landscape, it does enforce that major isolation feeling. And because of this fundamental foundation of No Man's Sky, having full-blown multiplayer with fucking PvP and space battles would kill that quaint and kind of indie feeling the game has. So in my opinion, multiplayer should never be a requirement of No Man's Sky. Seeing other players is as far as I want to go. Perhaps the ability to trade or add someone as a friend, but whole wars and combat and alliances and economies, no, that just isn't No Man's Sky. But aside from full-blown multiplayer, what is another major point of focus for updates? Well, this is the one that I personally agree with the most, and that is a major variety update. I guess this goes without saying, but No Man's Sky's procedural generation can always be improved upon. Whether it be animals, terrain, plants, or even colours, Hello Games can basically make infinite changes to how planets generate in No Man's Sky. And procedural generation is a tough thing to nail down. There is a reason why a lot of games don't generally use procedural generation, and No Man's Sky was the first of its kind to kind of use this experimental feature, and that's because it's very hard to get right. At the end of the day, it is random. You think about something like Minecraft, it's completely random. Yes, there is a set of rules, but it's hard to make stuff interesting when everything is just kind of chucked together by an algorithm. But I'll say this right away, No Man's Sky needs an update that's solely focused on variety. Previous updates have mostly added variety as kind of like a bonus feature, almost like a token bit of content that needs to be there. Take 1.1 and 1.2 for example, you know, the first two major content updates for No Man's Sky, which made stuff like terrain more varied with less predictable formations and so on. Next was the best example of variety being improved yet, as the previously added strange planets on 1.3 were massively overhauled to bring us planets void of colour, planets holding huge flora that towers above us, huge animals. And of course, more recently, 1.7 brought us underwater biomes and much more variety in underwater areas. But what we have never seen, and this still bothers me to this day how we have never seen this, is an update that is just focused on variety and absolutely nothing else. So I think the next logical step for No Man's Sky, now most missing features have been reimagined, is making planets all truly feel different from one another. I guess the best example you could give of this is pre-release trailers. When you go back and watch these old trailers with the old aesthetic which we lost, there was this immense kind of feeling of I want to go there, I want to explore that. We did clearly see that all planets felt different. You can argue for absolutely fucking hours whether or not these were scripted, if these even existed, but you can't deny that the pre-release feeling of No Man's Sky has more wonder and more kind of excitement than it does currently. This excitement was briefly brought back with Next, and I think a lot of people were so gassed when Next released because we had finally this feeling of variety and this feeling like planets were truly different. But I guess this comes back to the root cause with procedural generation, that is, you will always find the same planet twice, or you will start to notice that there are similarities and there are patterns, and I guess this is just a flaw with procedural generation that can't ultimately be fixed. But in terms of a variety update, you know, what can actually be done to kind of make planets feel more different and more unique from each other? Well, this goes without saying, but things like fauna and flora can always be improved. Next brought us in the right direction by making flora and fauna, potentially massive and towering and really disgusting, and of course 1.7 made underwater fish and aliens and all of that shit a lot scarier. But there is also things which they can do in terms of planets themselves, perhaps like natural wonders. This is something which is always spoken about, but things like waterfalls or multi-biome planets, maybe even volcanoes or stuff like that. This would all make a variety update all the better. But what we have to remember is that at the end of the day, No Man's Sky's foundation and core gameplay loop is built on exploration and just wandering around a planet. That is almost what No Man's Sky sells itself on. The idea that there isn't necessarily a set goal. You can go here, you can go there, you can optionally do the story, you can maybe trade if you want to and get a bit of money, or you can just simply fly around, visit planets, catalog animals, and that is it. So for No Man's Sky to truly become the game that we all wanted, but then some more, Hello Games simply have to release a full-blown exploration update that aims to make planets feel less samey. This is where I feel the game has to go next, and I think most of the community would agree when I say this. I know this isn't necessarily a brand new revelation. People have been saying this for a very long time, but I think it's important that we keep kind of putting it out there and we're, you know, very vocal about it, that we want this, because a completely variety focused update would honestly breathe so much new life into No Man's Sky, and it would make those that say left the game at launch because the game was too boring and too samey, you know, might bring them back, might make them want to give it another chance. But guys, please do remember, this is just one person's opinion out of a massive community. So obviously, I am keen to know your own thoughts and feelings on the topic. But guys, I just want to say thank you very much for taking the time out of your day to watch this video. If you guys enjoyed it, then please do feel free to leave a like on it. And if you guys could also subscribe to MZK, then that'd be absolutely fantastic. And as always, I will see you guys on my next video. This is SkintBoot, signing out.